I feel like I keep hitting the same ceiling or I keep hitting the same problems no matter what I do. And it is not your effort. And it is not your motivation. It is not your skill. It is that you have reached the limits of your current structure. Hello, ladies. I am so excited to come back to you with another season of Next. Now, in this episode, we're going to talk about this kind of 100K ceiling that you keep bumping into. And I feel like there's this like invisible barrier that can be there, especially if, you're sitting around that 7K a month mark. Maybe your 5K is your normal and you occasionally get to jump up to 9K and you're just like, how am I going to move past this? And there seems to be this like invisible barrier and you feel like you're all alone in it because everyone else seems to be like just thriving and living their best life online. And so you're like, how am I going to move in to this next level when everyone else seems to know something that I already know? And I think there can be a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment when, you have been in business for longer than a hot minute and you're like, I am trying, I'm working my ass off, and I'm just not growing. And I want to normalize that where you're at right now, you're not alone. And it's definitely not lack of, motivation or skills that is the effort. Because I think what we are told and what we are sold is if we just do more of XYZ, it's going to get us to that next level. And I truly believe that the same strategies that have worked to get you to where you are not going to get you further. And I know that from my own business as someone who built a business that was built on hustle, was built on hard work and doing more. I'm not saying I don't work hard anymore, but I definitely feel like I work smarter. I'm in that whole I have such a potty mouth today, you guys. I've almost sworn like 3 times when I've been recording this. So that is just a side note. So if I swear, I'm so sorry to the young ears that might be in the car. But as someone who has built and hustled and muscled their way to that first 100K, like I know that now I'm working in that kind of cliche, working smarter, not harder. And I hate that cliche. And that's where I was about to drop the F-bomb, but I restrained myself. I went down a tangent. So let's talk more about this kind of 100K ceiling that we're bumping into. I already know because of the women that I work with, they are feeling like they've done everything. Like they feel like they have unboxed every opportunity, tipped everything out. They're like, I'm doing everything. I've got offers. I'm doing marketing. I'm doing mindset work. I'm calling in energy. And yet my growth has stalled. And I just want to give you the biggest hug because that is such a frustrating place to sit in. And you kind of have this like, I feel like I keep hitting the same ceiling or I keep hitting the same problems no matter what I do. And it is not your effort. And it is not your motivation. It is not your skill. It is that you have reached the limits of your current structure. So last week we talked about being booked and busy and still broke. And this week we're talking about what happens when your effort is maxed out, but your results are not growing. Because that 100K ceiling is totally invisible when you are in it because it is built from habits that once worked. It is built from habits that did give you growth. And so your brain keeps saying to you like, well, if you did this before, you're using past experience as proof for the future. Like you did this before and it worked and it helped us get to where we are. So if we keep doing more of that, it's going to help us grow. And unfortunately, because we are building from habits that once worked, it makes that next level of growth even harder. So I just want to normalize this experience that almost every established regional businesswoman has been at this stage or has hit this stage. And it's that simplification. It is that tweak. It is that pivot that helps us move past this invisible barrier. And so this invisible barrier, this invisible ceiling, this 100K ceiling often looks like you're consistently earning money, but you're not increasing profits, or you've got kind of that consistent client base, but you're not growing. Like no one else new seems to be coming in. Or you've really built your business to a point, but you haven't necessarily evolved your systems or your pricing with it. And so you're feeling like, okay, I need to grow, but I feel like I'm growing without any sort of foundation. Or you're like we talked about last week, where you're booked and you're busy and you're working at full capacity and you have no room to scale. And this is totally not your fault. fault because the strategies that got you here aren't designed to take you further. They're designed to get you, a full calendar and working. They're not necessarily designed to scale past that. And so growth does require a new level of design and not just more doing. And so I really want you to lean into that idea of what got you here won't get you there. It won't get you that next 100K. Now, I feel like in this season, I'm going to be doing a lot of loving on you guys and giving you a lot of reassurance. And I really always come from a place of, yes, there's tough love, but it's always love. But in this season, I just really want to kind of call out that it's definitely not about effort or motivation or talent. Like, you have those things, and it's not about lack of information. So I just want to give you guys like all of that as a background for any advice that might seem like harsh, or it might seem kind of a bit of a shakeup, because it's coming from a place of, I know you have the skills. I know you're motivated. I know you're hungry for growth. And I don't want there to be any shame about, one, wanting more growth, or two, feeling like you're getting called out, because the real issue has nothing to do with who you are, but it's just with structural limitations. And I think growth is so much easier when we set apart any sort of emotional component and we lean into the structural limitations, like the offers, the delivery, the visibility, the mindset. Like, if we lean into what are the limitations that are physically holding me in a box, and if I change those limitations, how can I then grow? Because you might be feeling like, I need 20 more clients to hit, my next 100K. But to do that, I have to add 20 more hours. And that's a structural issue. That has nothing to do with who you are as a human. That has nothing to do with your level of effort, how motivated you are, how hungry you are for more money. It's really about just refinement, raising prices, repackaging, probably honing in on that ideal client even more, going harder after that ideal client. Because skill and determination can get you to that 100K. You're smart. You're talented. Like, there is no doubt in my mind that skill and determination, hustle and muscle has gotten you to 100K. But is strategy and systems, is thinking strategically beyond structural limitations that is going to take you beyond it, that is going to take you to the next 100K. So your offers, your delivery, your visibility, your mindset, those structural limitations, like right now they're in a box. Let's make that box 10 times bigger, is how I think of it. So when you're thinking about moving past this ceiling, there are some levers that we can pull. So the 3 levers that I feel like we can always pull on is that high volume, outcome-based offer. And the issue with a majority of offers that have gotten you to that kind of first 100K is they're not positioned as high value. They're not positioned and packaged as you as an authority, as a leader in the space. They're not driven by your outcomes and the results that you deliver. They're more driven by like hourly rates and this is what I can do for you, not necessarily this is how I can transform your life or business. And so 100% they're the things that got you to where you are now. And it's like, how do I tweak? How do I refine? How do I up level what I'm doing to get that next level of growth? So that's the first lever, is offer based. And I just, it must have been last week or week before last, I had a new client that started with me, and I think her offer was like $99. And I said, whoa. And we immediately made it $1,000, but it wasn't like we just suddenly shifted it and it was $1,000 offer. Everything that we added into the package was actually existing within the package already. It just hadn't been named and claimed and really create the authority around it created. And so that's the shift, is naming and claiming your authority that you've created to get to where you are now and charging for that accordingly. I'm not the kind of coach that's just going to say, look, let's 10x your price and you're going to 10x your business, because that's just not realistic. So many other little moving parts have to go into it. But when we're talking about going from a $100 offer to a $1,000 offer, there's likely serious wiggle room in there. Now, going from a $100 offer to a $10,000 offer, that package is probably going to need to be seriously revamped. It's doable because I have this year had someone that had a $300 offer and we transformed it into a $10,000 offer. So It's totally possible. Now, the next lever that we're going to talk about pulling is visibility that builds authority. And so the known season was all about that element of visibility, because expert energy is just that quiet confidence. It is just you standing tall in what you bring to the table. You have your clear opinions, you have strategic positioning, you have a message that grows with you. And generic advice of how to get your first client real is not the sort of strategic visibility that you need. And it's not the kind that honors the depth and maturity of the business that you've built, because you're not a beginner anymore. But realistically, your visibility might be. You've grown the business, you've served dozens of clients, you've built experience, you've learned hard lessons, you've developed a point of view, but often the outside doesn't necessarily reflect the inside. And you're kind of still showing up like you're trying to prove yourself, like, oh, I know everything about this system and this is how I would do it and this and this and this. And so you're still trying to prove like, I've got the knowledge, I know what I'm doing. But in reality, you're the leader in the space, and you need the outside to understand that you're the leader in the space. And so your content still sounds like you're kind of in year 1, even though you're in like year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 10. So you're stuck in this kind of like starter mode branding and messaging and energy, and it's attracting really beginner level leads instead of those higher leads that you deserve. So you really need to have that visibility shift to match your evolution, where your positioning is elevated, you're owning your authority, you're, publicly and consistently owning that authority. So that visibility piece is so key, and it's such an important lever that we can pull when we're talking about your next 100K. Now, the other lever that we definitely have to kind of leverage is a sales system that converts without chasing. And this goes into simplification and leverage and not necessarily effort. And likely, again, it kind of circles back to offers, but it also circles back to message, and it also circles back to ideal client. So if we're very clear around having a fabulous offer, we have such clarity around your ideal client who's buying, and we have a clear message of authority, it makes the sales just sell. That conversion process becomes so much easier, because we are, instead of just adding more to the process, we're refining. And I just feel like we're drilling down, and it actually removes an element of effort. So I just want to invite you to think about, what if the problem isn't that you need to do more, but you just need to do different? And like I said at the beginning, that 100K ceiling, what's keeping us stuck is habits that got you to where you are. And so when we're talking about doing different, it's actually breaking habits, which is so hard. And it's breaking thought patterns, and it's breaking up things that have gotten us to this point that we have proof that they work, because you like, it's not day one in business. So we have established proof. And so that whole mindset shift is such a challenge. And I want to congratulate you that you've hit the ceiling, because you've mastered that first phase. Like, you've mastered it. If you are at an income ceiling, you've mastered the first phase of business growth, which I don't think you get enough credit for mastery. Like, mastering that first phase means that you have figured out how to build your own business to a point where people want to pay you, which so many businesses fail at that. Like, so many businesses don't even get that off the ground. So congratulations on your mastery. Now it's time to step into that next 100K. And this is not at all about like starting over. This is about like, let's pull a new lever, and let's figure out what lever that is that you need to pull. All right, guys, I will talk to y'all soon. Can't wait.